Are we live? Is it happening?
I think it's happening. I can't tell. All right, we are live. Awesome. Hello, everybody. It is Quinn and Sarah from Content Cucumber coming at you live today, and our topic is
Zoom fatigue and what we do to try and combat that. Since we are a remote company, we are on Zoom.
Several hours a day. Usually not as much anymore, but there are definitely days where it's like meeting after meeting after meeting, and it adds up quickly.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, we were just talking about a study that came out recently, just kind of being like, Zoom fatigue is real, to which everyone who's been remote working for the last year went, uh-huh. Yes.
It's like, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, but I do think it's really validating to see that there's actually research behind why it seems like Zoom meetings can be even more exhausting than in-person interactions.
Yeah, it really is. I know when like the pandemic first hit and everyone went right into like remote work, it was like, well, not everyone has Zoom fatigue. And like, it was like it was very questioned. It was like, well, maybe if you do like hours of Zoom calls, but like even 1 hour Zoom meetings, you can get Zoom fatigue because it means it's so individualized. And now it's so validating for it to be like, no, science has said that it is real and people do experience it.
Yeah, because it adds up. And I think it's especially difficult because when you're in an in-person meeting, there are physical indicators when the meeting starts, when it ends. If you're kind of, like getting stressed out, you can go to the bathroom, you can physically leave the environment and take a break. Mm-hmm. Whereas with a Zoom meeting, a lot of the time you're sitting in pretty much the same spot at the same computer all day. And so there's not as clear of this is the start of a meeting, these are the breaks, this is an end, this is the location. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it easier for things to just kind of keep going.
Yeah, and I know I've seen a couple things that have talked about like how much it like adds to it that you're seeing your own reflection, like that you're just like looking at yourself, or you start to worry about like, oh my gosh, is that what I look like? Is that's such weird lighting? Like, okay, that face does not look like I'm paying any attention. Like it's totally different than being in person. You don't look at a mirror in an in-person meeting. Like,
can you imagine though if we all walked around to in-person meetings just like holding out a hand mirror in front of us?
That
would be so weird. But that really is the case. And I know a lot of people kind of joke about how, there's like 5 or 6 people on a Zoom call and you still end up checking your reflection. Like, is my hair okay? Do I look very serious and like I'm paying attention? Dang it, one of my dogs just opened the door. It looks like my house is haunted. Like you're kind of, I'm really curious to see if people become more self-conscious or more comfortable because of that kind of constant being confronted with our own image.
Yeah, I feel like I've experienced both of those things. I feel like there's been days where I'm like, it is reassuring, like, okay, like I don't look crazy today. I look somewhat normal. I can focus on the meeting. And then there's been other days where I'm like, oh my God, I look like I have huge bags under my eyes. This lighting is crazy.
Yep. Yeah, I really dislike afternoon meetings, partly because of that, because in the morning, I have this wonderful bright light coming in from a window and it's amazing. But in the evening, there's no light here. And then there's a really, really bright orange light coming from a window over here. And so it's just like this side of my face is glowing. Mm-hmm. And then this side of my face looks kind of like a dark movie cover. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's not like Phantom of the Opera, like one side is dark.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
We have a daily staff meeting, and always right at the beginning I have a window right here and the sunshade, which I can't close it any more than it's already closed. I get like the stripes across my face because of the weird light, which doesn't bother me because like it's the team that we work with so much. And I think that really helps. Like if it's the same people and you start to get comfortable with them, that starts to go away. Like feeling self-conscious about like the weird lighting, or that like you did not realize that your background was so cluttered. Like I did not realize that this shelf had so much stuff on it until we started doing Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I think that every time we go live, I look at the top of my bookshelf and go, oh, that looks more cluttered than I thought it did. I should organize that. And then I forget for another week. And then I'm sure next Wednesday I'm going to look up at it and go, I should really find a better place for that basket. Yeah. And then I probably won't.
Yep, I do the same thing.
So as we have already very much established, Zoom fatigue is real. It presents a lot of really different challenges. And like, even there, I'm like checking, there's one of my little hairs sticking out and I gotta handle it. Checking your reflection. There are some unique challenges that come with being on a Zoom meeting, but as people have been doing this for a while, we have found some strategies to combat it. I know one of my favorites is just forcing myself out of the house. Obviously in the winter, that's not always practical when it's like negative 11 degrees outside. But right now it's pretty warm out. And so being able to say, all right, I'm closing the laptop, I'm going on a short walk around my neighborhood, and just kind of creating that distinction of this is when I'm in a meeting and this is the end of the meeting. And now I can kind of like turn off that self-consciousness and checking the reflection and trying to stay attentive to that.
Yeah, it's like a real like reset. Like you're getting out of that environment for a little while and then you'll come back to it.
Exactly. And I think it also kind of replicates what you would see in an in-person office where you go to, a boardroom or a communal room or, a lunchroom or whatever, and take a break. And then you might go back to your cubicle or you might go back to another meeting, but there's still that walking in between locations that makes it a little bit more distinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good one because it really is true. You don't usually sit in a boardroom all day and people come in and out to have meetings with you. Like,
Yep. Yeah. Very different environment.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I think one of my best tips is if you are finding yourself in any meeting, like checking your reflection a lot and like really kind of obsessing about like what's in the background and finding it really distracting, minimize your window and maximize the speaker window. I know that Zoom has that option where you can just hit speaker view and it will show you in the upper corner, but it's not a very big image. And that really helps a lot to like stop yourself from like glancing over at your own image and like distracting. And then you just don't, it's like kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like then you don't worry about it.
That's really clever. I hadn't thought of that, but that way makes sense. Because I think mine pretty much always defaults to gallery view, which has its perks for when you're actually conversing with a lot of people at once. But if it's just like one person presenting, that can definitely get distracting pretty quick.
Yeah. And I think too, like turning off your camera, as long as that's okay with where you're working, is they're okay with that, just turn it off for some meetings. If you're not presenting something, if it's a big meeting and you're just kind of there to contribute or watch or take notes, I think it's fine to turn your camera off. Even you don't have to like all or nothing. It's not like you always have it off or you always have it on for every meeting. If you need that break, just take that break.
It can vary, and don't feel pressured. I think people feel pressured to really always be looking at the computer or looking directly into the camera because they want to kind of imitate eye contact, right? But there's nothing wrong with being able to kind of sit back and like look out the window or stare at a blank wall for a little bit and, just kind of sit and think. I think it makes it harder to process information when it feels like we are performing instead of just existing and thinking and really engaging. And maybe that's one of the things that's most exhausting about Zoom is that it feels less like engaging with other people and it feels more like you're performing for a video.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine like being filmed all day, like in the real world, like outside of Zoom. Like if you just had someone with a camera on you all day, like that would be exhausting.
Exactly. So being able to turn it off, take breaks, and when you take a break, actually separate. Like I know, Quinn, you've had some really great tips as far as kind of taking an actual lunch break and shutting the tech down. I think that's really helpful too. I've definitely noticed I'm so much more productive in the afternoons when I just take even half an hour and just like turn off notifications, shut down the laptop, go get a snack, read a book, do something that doesn't involve screens for a little bit to kind of reset.
Yeah, it really is that same kind of idea of like getting yourself out of that environment so that you actually take that like mental break and then coming back to that environment. It's so different than just kind of staying in it.
Yeah. Well, and like I know very few people that have thinking faces where they're like, yes, take a video of me deep in thought. I love how I look deep in thought. Like I look angry when I'm really focused because like my eyebrows furrow.
And a lot of people do. You're just like, it's always like very serious.
Exactly. And in person, you might have a meeting, you're kind of thinking about how you feel and then you go back to your desk. But when you're kind of in a co-working type of meeting and you're all working on different projects, like having to mindfully go, okay, I'm going to like keep my eyebrows up. I'm going to not press my lips together. Like I'm going to not look really angry because I'm not angry. It is going to take more mental energy to do those things at the same time than it would be to just say, all right, I'm going to work on this separate project once I'm off of here so that I can actually give that my full attention.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, here it starts. The light is starting to change.
There it is.
Yep.
There
It
you
really
go.
is a totally different world when you're like watching yourself during the meeting. It's like so normal now, and like FaceTime, software has been very normalized for a long time. But it's so weird when you really think about like having a meeting and like you're looking at yourself in the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm intrigued to see the kind of end results of that.
Yeah. I think another good tip is if you could take a long break in between Zoom meetings, even like 10-15 minutes, and go outside, like that's great. If you don't have that option, even like taking walk around your house, just go sit in another room for 5 minutes, or like stretch, or get a glass of water. That makes a huge difference. At least like I've experienced, even like those couple minutes I walk away from my desk in between meetings.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I got a treadmill a few weeks ago and it has been life changing to just be able to kind of hop on that. And again, even for 5 minutes, just to get that little endorphin boost. I know I posted a poll on LinkedIn, I think it was last week, and we both mentioned we exercise intermittently throughout the day. And that's part of why, is to get that break, to get that little endorphin high, to get some time off screens and really get the blood flowing. It seems so simple. And yet a lot of things that are so simple, just because it's simple doesn't mean everyone's doing it. And it doesn't mean you're going to remember to do it every day when maybe you should. At least I know I don't. Like I'll be sitting here and I'm like, why am I having so much trouble focusing on this? And then I go, oh, I've been sitting here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I should take a quick break.
Yep. It's time to get up and just take a couple minutes, because it's never good to just like try and power through that kind of a feeling. Because I mean, at least for me, like it never really happens. Like, okay, maybe I get half of a task done, but did I even do it that well? Am I probably gonna have to look over it again later? Yeah. I should just take the break and then come back to it.
Well, especially when you're putting that much pressure on yourself. Like I know one of our editors a while back was talking about how when they're having trouble writing something, they'll say, okay, I'm just going to write one really bad draft and then take a break. And usually that bad draft isn't as bad as you think it is. But once you're already kind of in that mode where you have Zoom fatigue, you feel like you've been sitting at the computer for too long and you're trying to force yourself to be productive, like that's too much pressure. And it's hard to perform under that pressure compared to taking a break, getting a snack, getting some water, doing whatever you need to do to reset yourself, and then being able to come back with fresh eyes.
Yeah, it makes so much of a difference.
Another thing that really helps with Zoom fatigue for me is doing meditation in between meetings when I can. And again, even just for 5 minutes, you don't have to be like full on 15 minutes, sit on like a meditation pillow, a formal setup. Even if you're still sitting at your desk or you just moved to somewhere else in your house, I use an app called Oak that I like because it has an unguided timer and then it just kind of ends with a gong. So it's not like setting up an iPhone alarm and then it's like really loud in your ear and you're kind of jolted out of it. And just setting it for 5 minutes and just sitting, eyes closed, and really focusing on that mindfulness piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think really taking any sort of break that you're able to is a huge thing. It makes such a big difference because we're not getting away from Zoom meetings. I mean, we're a fully remote company. We will always be doing them. But like even companies who are going to go back once it's safe to, that's still going to be a long time. And even then, I know a lot of places are talking about like staying remote or doing hybrid. And so they're here to stay. So really finding what works for you, and whatever that is it's like, that's great. Whatever it ends up being, what works for you is what you need to do.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to try different things. There's no like one right way, right? We're not here to prescribe to you, here are the 3 things that will make sure you never have Zoom fatigue again. Like that list doesn't exist yet. Maybe someday, we can hope, right? Yep. But the big thing is being willing to try a lot of different things and see what works best for you. And maybe you'll try meditating and be like, that didn't work for me. I just I kept thinking about the meeting and that just made everything so much worse. And you might go for a walk and go, oh, like this really worked for me. Or you might go, I hate the outdoors. Why am I here? So don't be afraid to try different things. And just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean there's nothing out there for you.
Yeah, there's tons to try. And I think another great tip that I just thought of while you were saying that is prioritization. Because I know like I do a lot of meetings, but they're all with our team. Sarah, I know you do a lot of meetings and a lot of them are with like outside people, like outside of the company. I can imagine like on those, it's better to be more professional and like maybe be on camera, or especially like when you're doing interviews. If you have to do that, like prioritize. If you're having a meeting with your team and you know you have a meeting right after with a candidate you're going to hire and you have to be on camera, turn your camera off for the meeting with your team. Tell them like, I'm just going to, have my camera off because I have to do something else after this, where you can't turn your camera off at that meeting. Like that prioritization, I think, can really help a lot.
Yeah, knowing what's on your plate is a really big deal. And another thing I think is really important is not multitasking when you're on Zoom. I think there's kind of this idea of like, if you just kind of multitask and do something else, it won't feel as exhausting. But at least for me, I know it has the exact opposite effect. And there are articles coming out now about multitasking while on Zoom and how much productivity is wasted because you aren't catching all the details everyone else is discussing. And so then everything has to be repeated. Or after the meeting, you go, crap, am I supposed to do something? Like, you don't want to have to be that person. And so really avoiding multitasking, closing unnecessary browser windows, or even full screening Zoom, or at least making it cover any browser windows or productivity apps or messaging apps that you have can be really helpful just to aid in that focus so that while you're in a Zoom meeting, you can be fully present. And then when you leave that Zoom meeting, you can fully shut down and know that you paid attention, you learned what you needed to, you worked on whatever projects you needed to get done. And now you can kind of close that chapter of your workday and move on to the next one.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the person who the teacher just said something, everyone is doing something, and you are zoning out and you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
And
like sometimes it happens. If you need help, you need help. Like I know there have been times where one of my dogs will go a little crazy during a meeting and I'll message Quinn like, were we supposed to do something with the last 5 minutes? I'm sorry. We were handling a puppy situation here. Like it happens, but I think that really avoiding multitasking can help minimize that, which makes all the difference.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I get so stressed out if I'm like, I don't actually know what happened on that meeting. And now I need to figure it out. And like, I'm going to be missing stuff. And yeah, it's really tough to not try and multitask sometimes, especially like when you get those notifications that pop up, or you just got an email in and, you could see the first line of it in your little alert. But that's a really good tip to like maximize the Zoom window. So that's not even an issue.
Yeah, I don't know if this happens on non-Apple computers, but I have a Mac and I actually have Do Not Disturb on just 24/7. And that does wonders for my productivity. So while like if I have my Gmail app open, I might see an email come in, I'm not getting the little banner notifications. That doesn't pop up for me. And I forget how big of a life hack that is until I turn Do Not Disturb off. And then it's like every 3 minutes, there's an email or a text or a Slack message or a Todoist reminder. There's always something. And I'm like, I regret everything. Turn it back on.
That's such a good tip. There's so many times where like we're right in the middle of the meeting and I look over it on my phone. I'm like, oh, what did he say in Slack? What did this say? Like,
yep.
I'm like, stop, you're focusing.
Exactly. Yeah. So turning off notifications and really getting good at knowing how to do that on whatever your device is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So like
or
on
just
my
turn
phone,
your phone over.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, that's not going to work for me, I need these notifications or I'll never remember to open that app, turn it over during the meeting. Put it like behind you at a table or something.
Or you can even set it up so that they show up with banners, but they won't make a sound or a vibration. So when you're already opening your phone to check notifications, the little banner is there, but it's not buzzing and dinging off the walls while you're trying to focus on something else.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's not screaming at you like, what?
Exactly. Especially if a group chat starts going off and you're like, there are 30 messages, like I can't.
Something is obviously happening, but you cannot check right now.
Exactly. And that has to be okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Trying to think if there are any other tips before we hop off of here. think that about does it for me.
Yeah, I think the only tip that I have left, just because the lighting is reminding me of it. If you're like, you have weird lighting just like this and you're on a meeting, you feel super awkward about it, like just say something. Just be like, guys, I'm sorry. This is the time of day. The sun is moving. My window's right here. I can't change it. Just like acknowledge it, because sometimes it just feels awkward if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody cares. Like I've done that before. I'm like, sorry, the lighting is weird. Like I cannot with this lighting right now. It's like, it kind of gets that out of the way.
Yeah. And most of the time, everyone else on the meeting is probably going to be too busy worrying about their own lighting or background or one hair that's sticking out to even notice it anyway.
Mhm.
So most of the time, I feel like it ends up with people commiserating about like, oh my goodness, I know my lighting's awful too. And it can kind of be a camaraderie building moment.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So final review, basically take good breaks before and after meetings, fully shut down so you can turn back on. Prioritize your meetings where you need to have your camera on. And when you're on the meeting, try to focus fully on the meeting. So once it's over, you're not left thinking about it for like half an hour, trying to figure out what just happened.
Mhm.
I think that about sums it up. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
All right, awesome. Well, in that case, thank you for joining us, everybody. Let us know your favorite hacks for Zoom fatigue in the comments, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.